Welcome to this video on my Ducato Fiat Tribute T669 motorhome. Doing 4 modifications in one on this video. I will attack them all singularly, but I thought I'd just put them together in one video because it's just sort of easier. They're not particularly long-winded, and as long as I get, you know, the important bits across that will help you achieve that, if that's what you're looking to do, then all well and good. So the first one I'm going to do is the issue I have with the sliding door. It's a build quality thing more than anything else. Generally, you know, for a panel, i.e. the door that's being open and shut, slammed, you do have to shut them quite hard to get them to shut properly sometimes. For a panel like that, I find the build quality a little bit disappointing because the actual panel is not really very well supported from behind where it supposedly meets the inner skin of the door. The only thing that's holding the panel on pretty much is the rubber that runs around the window and the 13 screws which go right the way around the outside. The other issues you'll find that I have with mine are I have little cracks appearing in some of the fixings. So let's take a little look. But all the screws are out and it's basically just being held in at the moment by the rubber. And if I show you up here, this is one of the fixings that is broken. There is a crack in this one. This one here has a split in it. And the reason that occurs is people tend to use that to close the door. And again, there's no support behind. If you look at this, it's hard to show you, but there's no support behind the plastic other than where it's fixed to the door. So of course, every time you shut the door, you will find that the inner skin is shaking about, putting all that additional stress on these silly little mounts, and that's why it causes it to crack. These panels are replaceable, but the problem that we have generally is that you can't match the color of your interior. So what I plan to do is remove the panel. I'm going to try and initially super glue the cracks from the inside, and then the big one by that door I'm going to apply a bit of fiberglass resin and matting to strengthen it up a little bit, because again it's going to always be a problem. This panel creaks a lot as well, particularly when you're driving, and I hate creaks. They drive me spare. So that's the plan. So we need to get a look at what's going on behind the door and pack it out with some, you know, insulation or any kind of sort of like a foam, just to give the door some better support. Now basically the door is just held together by the 13 fixings that run all the way around the frame. Mine are all out. I'm literally, the inner rubber seal to the window runs around the inside. You can just see that there. It runs around the inside of the frame. So mine is literally at this moment in time just sitting in it. And what I'm going to do is just basically, I'm going to open the door a fraction because that gives me a little bit more leverage, and get my hand behind the panel, and the rubber seal needs to pop underneath. You can see what I'm doing there. Do it very gently because this plastic is quite fragile. Another crazy thing in terms of build quality for something that's moving all the time, being open and shut every time you access the vehicle, it's not designed for that. It's very badly supported and executed, in my opinion. And then we basically should be able to lift it out like that, and there you go. Now behind is literally the door skin with a bit of insulation, and you'll find that when you push this up like that, there's actually nothing behind it supporting that door whatsoever. So what I intend to do is put something like a bead of padding stroke insulation behind it. Now I just want to see, that's quite thick what I've got there. I don't believe that's going to stay there. This is a little bit sticky. Let's try something like that. Oops. I'll try something like that and just pop it up there so it's like that. Again, it's not enough, but it will help. Now I've just been playing around with spacers and stuff that I might possibly need inside the skin to stop that flexing of that inner panel. That big fat foamy bit that I had is a little bit too much. Now that is 25 millimeters deep, and it's nearly it's just around about an inch, yeah. Whereas this one, this is 2 centimeters, or that's 2 centimeters thick. This one is, yeah, so this is there's 2 pieces stuck together here. They are a little under 2 centimeters, whereas this foam that I've got is nearer about 2.5, just under 2.5. So I'm going to go with, it's very hard obviously when you're trying to get behind it to put padding in, but I could feel there was support there on the panel. Normally you can push on this panel when it's installed, and there's flexibility here. So I intend to run a strip of insulation along here and up here, just to give the entire frame, and probably lower down. Hold tight a minute. So I will probably apply some padding on packing along here, up here, up to the screws, and probably on this panel here on the shelf and down to the other side. I'm also going to put an additional handle in here to open and close the door. Now it turns out that I've got quite a bit of this stuff lying around. I really can't remember what I bought it for now, but it was for packing or insulation. It's quite soft, it's quite foamy, you know, it's not, you know, it's not mega hard, but it will just do that. I'll bond it on the door so that the panel can just literally rest against it. So if I ever need to get the panel off again, then I'll be able to do so. So I've got quite a bit of it here, more than enough probably to go around the outer frame, just to give that a little bit of support. You know, the handle is literally just a cheap, well, it's supposed to be heavy duty, but it's a cheap one I got on, I think I bought it on eBay. It was about $3.50, something like that, not a lot. And I'll put a couple of large self-tappers in it, and put it on the door here, going through the internal skin, but at the same time providing loads of extra support for it on the inside, so that there isn't any stress on it. But that's going to really, I think, save that inner framework. And in terms of the other mods that we are talking about doing, basically I am going to, that's number 1 that I'm in the middle of with you now. I am going to install some additional lights in my cab. There's a guy on YouTube, Leisure Bit, cracking guy. Never spoke to him or met him or anything like that, but I've watched quite a lot of his videos, particularly on solar and stuff like that, because I'm getting into that as well. But he installed basically 3 lights here in his cab, as it were. Brilliant idea, quite easy to do. I'm going to be doing that, and they're basically there. I'm going for a soft white one because I find the cab is a little bit underlit. I don't particularly like the courtesy lights that much. If you have a standard bulb in them, they're pretty useless, and if you put an LED in them, I find they're really, really harsh. So that's the end, that's the plan there. That's the other job. Another little fix, digressing a little bit, I recently installed, I bought them on Amazon. They were a upgrade light for the bedroom lights, as it were. Let's have a look at those. Basically, they're those silver ones up there, and they have a USB in them, which I didn't have before, and they're just touch sensitive. But I had an issue with one where when I was driving along, the internal lights were switched on the control panel, and I had an issue with one actually underneath here in the other bed, because I've got 2 bunks in the back, 2 double beds in the back of this, and that's the rear one there. And what used to happen was this light, this one in particular, it was only this one, it used to come on while I was driving, and it would go brighter, it would go dimmer, etc, etc. If you have that problem after you've installed them, behind here are your screws, and they're just screw caps. Now, if you touch anywhere on the fitting, it will affect or turn it on or turn it off or whatever. And what was happening, basically all the body. Now, I noticed that when I touched the screw cap, right, it was turning the light on and off as well, which shouldn't happen. If the screw is earthing out on the body, and what it was, I had to change the screws in that one in order to get a good fix up against the inner skin. And in doing that, the screws were slightly larger, and they must have earthed out on the inner casing of the light fitting. Now, what I've done is I've taken the screws out, insulated them, put them back in, popped the caps back on, and hey presto, I don't have any issues. So an easy way to tell if you've got a ground leak on your light fitting is just touch the actual caps that are over the screws, and they shouldn't activate the light, because they should be earthed, because they've got a black shroud that the screw passes through to prevent that happening. So yeah, that's that, cured that problem. That's what you get for changing screws. So in this video, we're doing the inner door skin to your access to your motorhome. We are doing the door handle, which is number 2, I suppose, but it's all part of said door issues that I have. It's the alarm going off because there's no water in the tank. Number 3 will be the lights in the cab. I've got those here, about £20. I'll try and put a link in the description. They are WOW, it's WOWLED, WOW LED on Amazon, about 20 odd pounds. They are remote control, but the good thing about them is the settings, because you can have them on sort of like, they're dimmable as well. So you can have them, you can set them up the way you want them to be in terms of brightness, etc. When you switch them off, the system remembers where you had the settings, so each time you turn them on, they'll stay the same, rather than having to go through all the menu and reset everything. So that's that job coming up on this video. And the other job I'm going to do outside is a bit drastic, I think, but we're going to have a go at it anyway. I'm annoyed that I don't have an outside, like an awning light as such. I put a couple of temporary LEDs, solars out there, but I have to take them out every time I go on the road, and it's just a little bit annoying. They work really, really well, but I need to do something different, so I'm going to go full on with this one. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a strip of LEDs all the way along that line, the length of the canopy. I'm going to have to cut a hole in the side to put a tiny skin fit in about there, and then I'm going to wire it into the system. But they are waterproof, quite nice. I'm going to put some additional fixings on them and stuff like that, so that's going to be done as well. I'm also doing a little bit of work, sorry about the poor footage here, I'm doing a little bit of work on my cycle rack. The end caps that wrap round the inside of the door were quite corroded, so I've removed those. This one, the screw had corroded inside there. You can see the hole in the center. That's a new thread that I had to cut, but I've got the caps off, and basically I am going to give those a refurbish and put them back on, and that should be it for that. But it's worth keeping an eye on those things, keeping them lubricated, because if they seal up and seize up, they're just going to snap off inside, which is what happened to me. Now these are my new fixings. They're not quite fully dry yet, but they're basically stainless steel washer, and what I intend to do is when I put it back in the vehicle is I'm going to put those over the top. Let's do it here, it'll be easier. Over the top like so, and put my screw fixings on top. Now getting a colour match was a bit of a nightmare. These are stainless steel, so I keyed them up, and you'll see the true colour on the outside rim there, just about. But I basically sprayed them with some yellow acrylic paint, but I put a etch primer, keyed them up first with a bit of sandpaper, put an etch primer on it, sprayed them yellow, and then I gave them a dusting of what is Arctic white paint, and they blend in quite well. So they're going to sit there, so they're going to give support all the way around the outer edge, and also with the additional packing on the inside here should help to support the whole panel a whole lot better. I'd just like to point out, this resin I've had for quite some time, and I had to warm it up just to get it pliable, and that is, it shouldn't be as sticky as this. So I don't honestly know if it's going to work. Now apologies for that lousy application of the fiberglass resin. I was using old resin, and old resin goes really thick, but you can sort of reconstitute it if you put it in a pot of warm water, which is what I did. Mine was quite old, it can crystallize as well, but it made it very hard to work with, and it didn't go on very well at all. But I managed to get 3 layers of matting on there. It's pretty abysmal in terms of appearance on the inside. I'm quite embarrassed to show it to you really. But let's take a look at what I've done, because I've also added a little bit of batten around the outside of the inner door skin, which is going to support the framework. So basically what I've done, I've taken some 8mm ply and I've bonded it, yeah, maybe, to the inside frame, because if you look at the actual plugs, the actual screw fixing, you've got this proud edge which is about 8mm, so that sits on the door itself inside the vehicle. When you screw into here, these are being automatically pulled and stressed around that outside edge. So I've done that to share the load and stop it wanting to flex. So I've done that all the way along the top and all the way down the bottom. That bit there won't sit completely, this bit won't sit completely flat at the moment because the panel has got a little curve in it, just through history, I suppose. But that's where I'm at. I've also offered it up and drilled my 2 holes through for my door handle, and that is where I'm at with that. So I'm hoping that the outer frame itself is going to be supported better, it's going to be firmer, and also just take and share the load better on those fixings. I also super glued all the way around these, particularly the ones down the bottom, and have applied a bit of resin around there and around there, just to, again, to give them a touch of support. So let's see what I've done inside the vehicle. Inside the vehicle, these are the 2 additional holes drilled for my handle, said handle. And I've also now laid some foam, not insulation, but packing more than anything else, around the inside of the frame there, all the way along that edge on the door, down inside that inner collar there, and across the bottom there, because I just basically offered it up and made a quick, got a quick look from behind to see exactly where the panel was flexing. And I'll be honest with you, that panel, hardly any of it touches the door skin other than the screw fixings. So this will pack it out a little bit and take out some of that flexing that goes on when you close the door. Let's get the panel back and see how it fits. Now, I wanted to clean the actual exterior of the panel up. Am I already facing a problem here? Nope, good. It's quite handy having the rubber windowsill latch onto it immediately. Could use a pry tool or something on this, but it is nice and flexible. And then I'm just going to try within the rubber, line it up. Right. So that's the door panel in on the rubber frame. I'm now going to put a couple of screws in it, just to make sure the alignment's good. That looks good because I can actually see the screw hole directly through it. Get a couple of screws in it, spaced out around it. This one doesn't. There you go. That's that one. See what we can get over here. And this is the first of my fancy little washers that I've made up. This was the hole that it actually cracked right through. So I've just removed all the debris from the inside and packed it from inside with a bit of support. I'm quite liking that. That is cool, because that will take one of the covers like that, not too terrible, I think. I'm going to need a few extra length screws, so I'm going to try and dig those out now. Okay, all the screws are back in. I couldn't video them all. You didn't want to see me struggling to get those ones in down the side here. They're all in, and I've used my new washers and the old caps. They're all good. Same here, same there, same down the bottom there. You can just about see it. So I'm quite pleased with that. It does blend in extremely well. Next job is to put the window frame back. Didn't video that on dismantle. I remember watching a video about someone who thought that the blinds were a bad idea in the fact that how they were positioned. Now I'm just going to try something here where that's the front. Yeah, and what they actually thought, I think if I remember rightly, they had these blinds on their back windows, and what they'd come to the conclusion was that how much better they would have been if, for example, they were, the blind bit came down instead of, so that you could block out low sun and stuff like that if you were sitting somewhere. Now when I took this one off, the blind was indeed the fly screen was the top one pulled down, the sunscreen or the blackout was the bottom one. I'm actually just going to try and reverse it and see if it will actually go back in this position and whether or not it will work. It might not, it might do, but he was talking about swapping them around, have the blinds the other way up. Now I don't know if they're going to fit or not, to be honest. I've just roughly screwed that in there. So let's just see. I'll put one screw in down the bottom, which is there. Yep. Yep. And then, so you've got sunscreen. It locks in anyway, so it's going to stay there. Fly screen, sorry, it's going to stay there anyway. And sunscreen, so you can in effect block out low sun. So, and if I show you the other one, i.e. here, this is the way they were. You had sun at the bottom and fly at the top. Whereas just by taking them off and turning them over, you can have them the other way around if that's what you want. I can't see a problem with that. All the screws are back in. I've left one cap off. Basically there's 2 screws in each corner. I've reversed mine, turned it upside down, so I've got the sunshade from above, so that when the sun's coming up or settling down, you can adjust that in for the morning and stuff like that. If you're sitting around, we'll see how that works out. And then underneath you've got your fly screen. So I've got one cap to fit back in here. They're a pain in the arse, these things. Oh, there you go. Oh. Kit leaving dirty finger marks and everything. It's really annoying. My hands are a bit grubby. Right, so that's the end caps done. The only thing left to do now is screw in my handrail. Basically, it goes in there like he says. Oh yeah, it is going. Just don't do it up too quickly. There you go. That's that. And this one. Get a couple of decent ones for it, but this is just to finish it off for now. That's great. And where are we? fantastic. And there we have it, one door handle. And because I've got all that matting and resin behind there, this is not flexing at all. It's solid now. What a difference that has made to the whole thing. So now I'll be able to open it like that and then shut it like that. Now that shut perfectly well, and that's basically it. I'm really pleased with my washers and that, how they blend in. Don't look terrible at all, do they? And that's the door handle. And obviously I've turned my blinds over. Worth thinking about if that's what you wanted to do. They fit, they're perfectly the same all the way through. And then basically, when you put a handle on, one thing to make sure you check out is the fact that you don't put one that's too big, because this goes right back to there. And if it's gonna, and you don't want it to interfere with your door opening. But there you go. The crack is still there, or the line is visible, but it's really nice and solid, and I'm really pleased. This used to just push in before. Now with that packing, it's made a big difference. So what I will do is I will colour code that. I'm going to wrap this video up on this occasion because it's going to get too long otherwise. So that's the job done. Let's take a quick look. Really pleased with how that's come out. The washer's blended in really well, giving it all extra support. The batten behind made everything so much tighter. There's no creaking now. It is well solid, so I'm well pleased with that. Hope you enjoyed that one. I'll bring the others up shortly, but we'll wrap this one up for now. Thanks for watching. More motorhome mods on the way. Take care. Bye for now.